Well, it's the middle of May, really the best time, not just to be carp fishing, but to be outside in nature. It's just absolutely sublime. We're down at a lake in the middle of nowhere. It's about a mile to the nearest main road, and we're just surrounded by all kinds of different birds and adders and real thick nature down here, which is amazing. We're at a lake called Carp Reserve, which is a little syndicate. It's about 3 acres or so, probably, something like that. Very shallow, very weedy, very tricky to fish. And a lake that when I first came to, the first couple of trips, I went away scratching my head a little bit. The fish in here aren't particularly massive, so it's one of those lakes that you can go to in the spring when everywhere else is just going crazy, and just fish for what to me are still big carp, but they're not giants by the modern sort of scene, but they're old, beautiful looking carp. I got in here last night and didn't fish, I haven't fished yet, but I went out and just put bait on a few little spots that I've been fishing, that I fished last spring. I haven't fished in here this spring, and just left it. It rained all night, absolutely came down. It was a beautiful night actually, and now we're going to get fishing today. It's very, very sort of intimate fishing, you know. A lot of the weed now is so high that you can't really fish it other than with a boat, or maybe with a baiting pole, because a lot of the water is about 4 foot deep, and the weed in most cases is just under the surface now. So chod's not really going to help you. So it's all about targeting those little cleared off areas, using the inflatable dinghy, lowering rigs down, put a bit of bait in, simple stuff, and seeing if we can get a bite. So it's pretty good fishing weather. So I'm confident that we might be able to nick one. Of course, carp never play ball when you've got cameras running, but I think we can get one. So I'm going to get myself fishing. I haven't had, like I say, I haven't had rods out yet. I'm going to get those sorted now, tie a couple of rigs, and get fishing. We've got 2 nights ahead of us. Really excited. Well, that took me right by surprise, and literally only got 1 rod in, and that is very simply the power of what I call free safe food. You literally pre-bait a swim and leave it overnight. It's something I do in a lot of my fishing, and it is a huge, huge weapon if you can bring yourself to do it. You know, when you're in a swim, it's your own private bit of real estate. You don't have to put rods out and make them edgy. You can feed them with no danger. And very often it pays off very quickly. I didn't expect it to pay off that quickly with only 1 rod in though. It's just coming down this snaggy tree line. I'm just worried about him getting in there. Not a very big fish, but that's typical, because after I said that this is a bit of a big fish corridor, it was always going to happen, wasn't it? But it looks like we've got a very feisty mid-double on the end, and that is very welcome. We've not even had any breakfast yet, so that is a proper touch. Gorgeous little fully scaled. Yes, excellent. Well, that came about 24 hours quicker than I thought it was going to, so proper result. And what a way to start. Well, that was seriously unexpected. You have a bloody heart attack when it went, and you know when you snag fishing and you've got to be on it quick anyway. So epic fight. It's small pumped up fish, you know, they're ready for the annual orgy, which will probably be, if it goes hot, could even be next week. It's going to be soon. So outstanding start. Let's hope it's not the only one, because sometimes you get that peak too early, and I don't know really what to expect now, whether that was a lucky one or whether that was the real benefit of free safe food. So the first thing I'm going to do is, obviously I've got the fish secured in the net, is unhooked, and I'm just going to run that rod back out, get it back on the spot. Sometimes, even this time of year, the early morning windows are very, very short, and I think now is still the best time for a bite. We've got loads of cloud cover which is prolonging that bite window. So I want to get the rod back out there, then we'll have a look at the fish. Just got the first coffee of the day on the go, and the right hand rod's pulled up really sharp. It looked like I wasn't sure what it was. You get a pike go through the line sometimes down here, and I was just about to say, oh, it's a pike or something, and then it pulled up again, and there's clearly a fish on, and managed to lean it away from the snag. This came on a different rod, middle of the channel, just off a little bed of lily pads. It's a spot I baited last night, and it definitely feels like a better fish, this one. I still can't believe that we managed to get 2 bites so quickly, especially after I just had a single magpie go right over the spot. I thought, well, that's that then, that's cursed. Well, it was cursed in a good way. I've got quite a soft pair of rods on for this trip, because with the braid you just need that, especially close range when there's snags and that, you just want to have a bit of a cushion. I think the lead's come off, he's gone for a lot of weed. And he just touched the edge of that snag down to the right just now, and I can see a branch quivering and shaking. He's trying to get in there again. Nice gnarly old back. Come on, mate. Oh yeah, come on. Oh yes, coffee and water, yes. That is the bollocks. Wow. Oh, we've got one of the proper ones. I'm not sure which one that is. Wow. We got proper lucky. A beautiful wide back mirror, great big black scales on his shoulders. I was going to finish my coffee, I'm gasping, but these fish are mega. Let's get them sorted out. I can't wait to have a proper look at them. This one is serious. Well, we were just getting prepped to try and get some pictures and have a look at these lovely 2 carp that we caught, and I still have one rod out, which is just off the front of the island there, and I just walked back down to get a bucket of water for the fish, and it's just held up tight. Hardly a bite at all, didn't rip like the others, very much like a big fish bite, dare I say. And we've got a fish on which is very slow and feels quite nice. Not really fighting much, it's just plodding around. And it's a good common. And it's really not fighting, which is pretty good actually. It's just prey will go in the net. Load of displacement come up there. With the tip of the leg core not even out the water, he was down on the bottom. It's quite deep in the edge here, you've got 6 foot. And you get displacement come up from 6 foot down. It's not a double, that's for sure. We just saw a real dark old back. Oh, it's a now. Excuse my language, guys, but that's knee knocking stuff. My mouth's just gone totally dry. Right, don't mess me about anymore. big wide head. Come on. Okay. And normally when you get them crash like that on the surface, big smash of the tail, all the bird life across the whole lake go crazy, don't they? But on here, all the tufties and the coots, the carp have eaten them all. There's none left. Come on. There we go, come on, stay up, please, please. Look at that big head, great big head. Oh, mate. Do you know what? I never ever shout by a lake because of other anglers and everything, but we're about 3 miles from anywhere, so yes, come on, that was the bollocks. That was the bollocks. Hell. Oh, what a unit. What a chunk. I think it's the big common, biggest fish in the lake. I can't even believe I'm saying that. It's certainly a very big fish. I need to get my head together. I don't even smoke, I need a fag. Oh, Jesus Christ. A carp reserve, fully plated. I don't know, what is he, 16 pounds, something like that. Absolutely gorgeous fish. The bite really started the chain reaction of mayhem. And what an hour we've had. And as you've probably seen, we've got a lot going on at the moment, but this is the smallest one. This is the first one. Beautiful dark folded tail, stock pond mouths, sloping over, just gorgeous. What a fish to start with. Well, that is prime grade mirror carp. One of the finest in the reserve, 27.5 pounds. Not sure if it's even got a name. It's hard to think of they come in all different shapes and sizes, don't they? And you see one like this and you think that's the perfect example of a mirror carp. Of course, there's loads of others too, but right now, right here, that for me is a perfect example of a mirror carp. Amazing. Very special. Just can't not take pictures of the other side when they're like this, can you? We just turn him round, and I'll tell you what, I could cuddle him all day. Of course I can't, but I wish I could. It's just, reminds me a bit of a carp from a long time ago that I never caught. It's one called Chubby Chops, lived in a lake in Kent. Something about this fish. It's got the beautiful texture on his cheeks, perfect shaped head. You've made my day, mate, you really have. You made my month, actually. Mega, absolutely mega. Well, to be this lucky on the first morning that we fished with the biggest carp in the lake, 38.5 pounds. This fish has been in here since the lake was dug. It's a proper old original. I just like speechless really. To get 3 fish in an hour's fishing is testament to many things, I guess. Luck from the carp gods being the first one, but the application of free safe food is a major weapon in my carp fishing, and we'll talk more about it later on, but there's no doubt in my mind that it's played a major part in the capture of this fella. I ain't going to be able to top this, am I? Amazing. Down into the silty murk. Do you know what's made that even sweeter is that I've just missed all of April because I've been injured and not been able to fish or do anything. So that is the best, most unbelievable welcome back. Thank you, amazing. Well, I think this is the first day's fishing I've had this year where it's been a t-shirt day, and it's absolutely lovely now. A lot of the clouds burnt off, we've lost that rain and big dark brooding clouds, and it's gotten really warm, which isn't really conducive for getting bites, but we see the fish cruising around in between the weed beds out there, the odd back breaking the surface, and so the fish are out there. There's not very much happening. This is the sort of low point of the day. I think you could probably still get bites now if the weather was bang on, but there's more rain coming and it's generally pretty good weather, so I'll just take advantage of the lull in activity to have a little reassess. I mean, so 3 bites in the morning, you know, or in an hour really of fishing is sort of, you know, this isn't a bobbins water. It's not rock hard either, let's be honest, but there's only about 60 or so carp in here, I think, so it's not one of those sort of well-stocked runs waters. So to get 3 nets all with carp in like that, and with the biggest fish in the lake, one of the bigger mirrors, it's just like testament to, I believe, the power of what I call free safe food. And that is a tactic now that I've been writing about for over 10 years, not 15 years, that sort of time. I certainly remember writing about it in Carpology in the early sort of 2010s, and it's a process or a tactic which I've managed to use on short sessions, as short as a day session, through to 2 or 3 nighters, all the way through to week-long sessions in France. And the principle, you don't confuse it with something like rest in the swim. So that's quite a common one. People like they'll get fish in, and then when it gets a little bit hard or slow, if nothing's happening, they'll bring the rods in and just leave the swim quiet. That is a viable tactic in its own right, but free safe food is completely different, because free safe food is only about giving the fish bait and no danger whatsoever, no lines, no traps from the outset. And effectively, of course, it is pre-baiting. And pre-baiting, you know, everybody will know intuitively, if not through their own anecdotal experience, that pre-baiting is one of the most potent weapons you can use in carp angling. Well, pretty much any kind of fishing, bream angling, tench fishing, you know, if you can establish an area by frequently applying bait and get the fish visiting it without them getting caught, then that will really, really maximise your results. But of course today, a lot of people think that you can't pre-bait because carp angling as an animal is just too busy. It's just not possible to pre-bait. But actually, the places where you can pre-bait or apply free safe food, where it works really, really, really well, are the really busy lakes. This isn't a particularly busy lake, although night before last there were 5 on here, which is, you know, pretty much the lake is stitched up. But it will work on lakes like this clearly, but on the really, really busy lakes, and I'm talking places where I've done it where it's worked really well. I've been on St John's at Linear, Manor at Linear, French fishing, lakes where the fish only get the threat of danger along with food. If you can give them just food with nothing going on from the outset, it really can transform the behaviour of the fish almost into like a different species. I remember one particular time I mentioned St John's, where I had a 3-night session and managed to get on some fish. They're up on the shallows end at St John's, and instead of fishing for them, I just fed the swim with the throwing stick for the first 24 hours. The seagulls, of course, make you have to fish little and often, bait little and often, I should say. So it'd be 5-10 baits, seagulls come back, stop, make a cup of tea. When they go, put out a couple more, and you end up drip feeding your swim in a kind of match angling style. And that in itself is very, very effective. Just the continual plop of boilies falling through the water is very, very seductive to carp that are passing through. And I did that all day, on and off. and all the way up to about midnight when I went to bed. And by then there's fish rolling and quite a lot of activity, because they're getting bait with no danger whatsoever. Now, if you bait an area and fish come onto it and they drop down and start feeding, they know every time that there is a threat of danger at some point, because that's the game. And they're used to coming across it all the time, and they will do their best to avoid it, of course. But when they drop down and they start tentatively having a little feed, you know, if you get a bite, the rest of them will go. And to me, it's very much like surface fishing. So if you imagine the fish were cruising around out here on the top, we think, oh, it looks cock on for a floater. You fire out a couple of pouchfuls of biscuits, one of two things will happen. They'll either freak out and go because they've been pressured on the top and they're not up for it, or one or two will just tentatively just start gently pecking at the surface. Now, if the latter happens, you could go, cool, right, no, they're taking a couple, put the floater rod together, cast out the controller. You get that out there, one of two things will happen. They'll either all go because they don't want to be fished for and they know what's going on, or you'll catch one. If you catch one, you can pretty much guarantee it'll be your only bite, because when you hook that fish, all the others will go. What if you just feed floaters for an hour, sometimes 2 hours or longer? I've fed them, and you see the behaviour of the fish completely transforms. More fish arrive, you get the heads and the backs coming out of the water, they start slurping, they start competing, and that is something that I've been able to do on you know, what are considered hard, tricky waters, whether it's been Horton or Kingsmead or loads of other places. But when you get them to that stage, if you then fish for them, when you hook one, you're playing it in, all the others are still feeding. You get the fish in the net, put some more bait out, and it transforms what could have been a one fish session, if you've just gone for that quick bite, to actually getting 4 or 5, or, you know, getting multiple. And because what happens is, once fish realise they can feed without anything bad happening, they withstand bubble floats landing, or leads, or spoms, or their mate getting hooked next to them. It's like the greed factor takes, well, that's what it is, the greed factor takes over, and all of the things that would normally put them on edge and make them flighty and twitchy become far down the list to just eating, because by that point they've eaten so much, the red mist has come down and they're just eating. And it is, like I said earlier, like fishing for a different species. And that time at St John's, I didn't get fishing until 24 hours in, so the first night was gone. But when I did get fishing, in 48 hours, I had 30 or 35 fish, including the, I think it's called the box common, one of the 40-pound commons, and it was just endless. And there's no doubt in my mind that if I just got fishing at the beginning of the session, I probably would have caught. But the first one I would have caught on them shallows that would have scooted off, all the others would have freaked out. I might have got another bite the next morning, but it wouldn't have been what it ended up being, which was a very memorable session. And that's just one example. A lot of people think that when you're in a swim and you've got, you know, they want to get fishing, and I get that. But to me, if I've got bait in the water, I don't need to have hooks in the water to feel like I'm fishing. I'm investing in the bigger picture and the longer game. And again, last night I could have got fishing. I didn't. I just baited the spots and left them. Not just because we were filming today, but it's something I do a lot in my fishing. And all of a sudden you get the biggest fish and 2 others, and in a very, very short succession of time. And the more pressure the venue is, the better it works. So you look at the whole French fishing is a whole other conversation, which would take me an hour to go through. But lakes that are really heavily fished by anglers never get pre-baited because of the nature of the beast. But always remember that when you are in your swim, provided it's got carp in the air, you know, you can't just do it and expect the carp to magically arrive where you are. You still always want to deploy your tactics where the carp are, because you're a hunter, you've got to be proactive and go to where they are. But once you've done that, you're investing in that bigger picture. I'm not losing a night, I'm investing a night. Do you see what I mean? So it's about that, looking at the bigger picture and trying to maximise your results. And as I said, like, it's not an armchair thing, it's best part of 15 years of doing it on loads of different lakes. And I would say that using free, safe food is one of my most potent angling weapons. Middle of the afternoon, proper quiet spell, and the fish are cruising about in that middle zone over the weed. Well, not all of them, but quite a few. There's no doubt that some of the fish will be in the canopies under the snags, and I want to walk around and check various ones from the bank, because a lot of them you need to get right in the base of the snag to see whether the fish are using it or not. But there's various others that you can only really assess what's going on via the boat. Now, it's possible, because you know they're very old fish, or some of them are very old fish and they've been in here a long time under a fair bit of pressure, that 3 fish from an area, this could dry on us now. We might not get another bite. So I'm thinking now about plan B. I'm thinking about going into our first night. I think we'll probably fish our first night here, but let's say we did that and by tomorrow morning nothing had happened, then I definitely would be looking for a move. So just thinking ahead, like a match angler always baits a little spot down the inside line for the last bit of the match or anything like that. I'm going to go out in the boat now while it's quiet. I've got no rods out or anything. I'm going to tie some rigs in a bit when I come back actually and get organised, but I'm going to go out in the boat now, just have a little cruise around and drop a few handfuls of baits onto little spots where I can see the bottom, so that if I want to move tomorrow I can go and check those spots. If the bait's gone, that'll tell me the fish are there, and then it's game on again. The Carp Reserve is a small intimate syndicate located out in the middle of nowhere, deep in the Essex countryside, not too far from the coast. It's about 3 acres or so, full of islands and overhangs, canopies, snags. It's very shallow, extremely weedy. In fact, for most of the year there's a lot more weed than there is water because it is so shallow. It's home to about 60 or so carp, and the pedigree and age of these fish is very, very special indeed. They were put in by the Water Authority when the lakes were dug some 30 odd years ago, and they really are special fish. By today's standards, they're certainly not giants. In fact, this lake's never done a 40-pounder, but it's a lake that I'm very, very happy to spend my time at because it is so serene, intimate, beautiful, enchanting, magical, and of course the carp themselves are extremely special. Okay, got all 3 rods out now. Put out that spare one there, which is off the left-hand corner of that island. Storms come in. We've had rumbles of thunder. Loving this, absolutely beautiful. It got really warm earlier, but now of course it's cooled down. We've got a nice light rain. You can feel the air pressure's dropped. The rods are perfect. Come on, a nice scaly mirror. Good morning. Well, luckily no fish during the night, and I say that because my insomnia is bad enough at the moment, so if I'd had a fish or two it would have been absolute hell. But like last week actually when I came, the activity from the fish just seems to be really day-based at the moment, which, you know, I'll take that. So I managed one small, sort of probably about low double I would have thought, little mirror just as the light was going last night, very welcome. And managed to get the rod out and sort it out. It was raining lightly, and another fish had just rolled. I was just going to say that actually a fish has rolled over the left-hand rod spot about 10 minutes ago, and another one's just gone over there. It's clearly bite time now. It's early in the morning still. It's a little bit chilly. It's beautiful actually. It's the bird song is just, you know, when you're out here in the middle of nowhere, the bird song is so loud, and it goes all night. You know, nightingales and nightjars and. But it is beautiful, and you think, do you know what, it's May, which is by far my favourite month of the calendar year, not just for fishing, but just for being alive. And, you know, if you're going to have sleep deprivation at any time of year, now's the time to have it, just so you can get maximum day. You know, it's heaven. I think we're getting some rain late at the moment. We've got blue sky, there's little bits of fizzing going on here and there. 2 fish have rolled in the zone. Bite time now. We're going to see what happens over the next sort of few hours, and then make a decision. If it looks like this is still the zone, then we'll stay here, but we have of course got those backup spots that we primed, which we may move into later if we need to. kidding me? Oh, I've lost it. I had to put too much pressure on it. Ow. Flat rodded me into the snag nearly. Bollocks. Sake. Well, that's a body blow. Very rarely have hook pulls. Very rarely. I'm quite fortunate like that normally, but you know it's going to happen every now and again, especially with the nature of the lake, with the weed and the trees and everything. I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with the hook. The hook point hasn't even gone over. It took off like an angry mid to upper double, which is what I'm hoping it was, but yeah, they always hurt, don't they? Big time. But I'm going to get another rig back out there, and I'm probably going to redo this one with a bit of fresh bait. And there's obviously fish about. Let's see if we can make the next one right. My obsession with hook sharpness goes back to the late 90s when I used to check all the hooks that we had in the factory by microscope. And I made a little jig, and the best ones I'd send half of them to Terry, and then I'd keep some for myself, and that's when it really started. And then it evolved obviously into what I call the Jason Hayward era, when Jason showed us what you could achieve with the Swiss files. And I used to send my hooks to Jason with a check, and he'd do them and send them back, and did that for a few years. And then of course the Jag kit came out, and I started doing them myself, and that's how I've done it now for the, I should actually mention, I went out with Shelley about 10 years ago, and he showed me how he was doing it, which was another level, again, to give him credit. He really knew what he was doing. So I've got a long sort of obsession and sort of background with that, and it's something that I maintain to this day is one of my biggest angling edges. And I think it would take someone who's really intellectually bereft to make an argument that something that is less sharp is going to catch you more or just as many carp as something that is supremely sharp. And there's been times where I've wound in my rigs and I've found my best is 2 tadpoles threaded round the bend. And when you're dealing with something like that, when you've got a hook that sharp, it is such an incredible edge. And I see that manifest itself through my own fishing results. Of course, you'll catch all the fish that we call bolters anyway on packet sharp hooks, but we all accept there are fish that are sitters that sit there and try and get rid of the rig. And I'm convinced that ruthlessly honed, really precision sharp hooks will catch you those odd uns that we call the sitters, the fish that get caught very, very rarely. So it's a much, much bigger picture than what we call sticky sharpness. It's about the taper, that length of that tip section, or not the length of the tip section, the actual diameter of that tip section, and getting it from that, which is ostensibly, say on a size 6 hook is going to be close to 1 millimetre, getting that down to the diameter of like a size 8 hook, just on that tip section, from the tip down to just below the barb, not round the bend. And that gives you what I call penetrational sharpness, which is how far that hook goes in relative to the amount of pressure required to put on it. And when I get a hook like that and I slide it into my skin, even though the barb hasn't gone in, not only does it go in very, very easily, faster and under a lot less pressure, but even if the barb isn't in, I cannot shake it out. So every year I'm fortunate enough to catch these fish, which sometimes the owner might say, we thought that was dead, or we didn't know that was in there. Not always big uns either, quite often they're not. But I get these fish, and I'm convinced that the real reason that I get those is down to hook sharpness and having that obsession. It's that doldrum period now, middle of the afternoon, hottest part of the day. It's not hot, but it's nice, but the fish aren't here in any numbers. Still feel we probably have a chance of fish coming through. The zones are prepped, they're set and everything, but do you know what? I'm a little bit bored of the view, and I've got very itchy feet. I'm going to bring the rods in, and what I'm going to do is a big explosion of roach over this spot. You know, you put those anvils of krill active in from the boat and the roach are on it straight away. It's so attractive to them. So I'm going to bring all the rods in and get on my toes with the Polaroids and a bag of bait, go around, see if there is like a real nailed on opportunity somewhere else on the lake. If there isn't, it may well be that we'll come back and do our second night in here. But right now I need to be sure of that in my head, so it's time to do some legwork. Big levers in here. Oh, they're under this canopy down here. Well, this is an absolute no-brainer. There's a significant number of carp using this area. Had them come under my feet. You can see them a little bit further out too. Looks nailed on for a definite move. It's a part of the lake that very rarely gets fish because the fish don't get in here very often. But Coots spooked a carp up there. Coots reared up, he's absolutely terrified. Carp's boiled in front of him, so they're not just here, they're spread in this corridor by the look of things. I'm going to get down, have a look a bit further around the bank and decide where we want to fish from, there or maybe there. But yeah, the water's very coloured as well. It's noticeable that the rest of the lake last night, the clarity came back, really got clear because it was murky yesterday. But over here, it's murky again, and you know why. Definite pack up. I'm going to get the house down, get everything moved around, and reassess, or reposition ourselves where there are distinctly more carp. They've moved into an area north-facing bank. Wouldn't expect them to be there in the spring. You know, there is some warm sunshine, and I really thought they would maintain their position around the shallow, weedy areas. Actually, they're in a fairly weed-free area of quite deep water on the end of the Little Breeze with not that much sunshine. And I can only think they've moved over there because of pressure, not just from me, but you know, there was 5 on at the weekend, and the area they're in now, very, very overlooked. I've never seen fish there in numbers until last week, and they're back there again today. So we're going to get packed up, get moved around there, and then decide how I'm going to fish it. There may be a casting opportunity, might have to use the boat, not sure yet, but in the meantime I've got to get cracking. Now before we move swim, I've got the bivvy down and I've got a bit of gear organised, but it would just be an ideal time to show you guys what I've been doing in terms of the technical end of the approach. And it's very, well, starting off with the reel, I've got it loaded with the SBX braided line, which is the 40-pound version, sinks really well. Actually, what's on my reels now has been on there for, it's in its 3rd year now, so that's a test spool that I was sent, and as you can see, it's kept its colour. I've used it loads. I've had my biggest UK fish on it. It's been absolutely used to max. One of them products that you've used loads and loads and you just have total belief in. Amazing. For a braided reel line, it's incredible. Now as I come down towards the leader, again, another thing that I've been using now for as long as it's been out is the 45-pound leg core, which has got a lovely camo fleck. This has been used a few times. That's a great thing. You never end up binning them because they're not durable and they get chafed up. You lose their colour a bit, and I tend to just fleck them up with a pen when they do. And the leg core is 6 foot in length, so I usually cast with a 6-foot dropper. Though I'm using a boat at the moment, everywhere that I go where it permits, I use a length of leg core. It's just the most robust. It suits my rigs. I use it for leg clips, helicopters, whatever. So that's been in my tackle box for a long time. It comes down to a heli sleeve or heli bead, and underneath that I've got one of these lovely little C clips. This is the 3-pound breaking strain version, and onto that I have got a nice big 4-ounce West Country lead. So it's one of the dumpy pairs, Roger and Kerry's, and that pretty much finishes things off. Now the actual rig is probably a little bit different to what most people are using. Well, it is very different to what most people are using, and that's why I'm using it. So it's a braided link, very, very soft. Let's just reshape that putty, it's in a bit of a mess. So I've got a braided, this is Duo Fleck, 25 pounds, and I've got a size 6 curve point there. And you'll notice that the rig is made of 2 components, a hook link and a hook, notwithstanding a bit of putty that I've got moulded on there. I think now you could probably take most popular rigs, count the components, and you'd be well in double figures, and I'm trying to reverse that, get away from that as much as possible in my own fishing. There's never been a better time to go retro and fish basic, and for the last 3 years or so, an awful lot of my fishing has been bottom bait only, so I'm not into wafters. I don't use pop-ups that often. Certain situations I will. This is just a krill active, tough one bottom bait. And that's what I want, a bait hard on the deck, not fluttering around and everything like that. And you can see I've tied the hair so that it comes off from the eye of the hook in what used to be called the old KD style. Now, one of the reasons this rig works so well is that it is so different to what the carp are used to coming across. First of all, the boilie is just laying there on the bottom. They're eating and baits nailed on the bottom all the time. And they never get caught on them. They're always caught on something that's shouting, going, here I am, I don't want any of that rubbish. So we've got a nice, soft, supple braided hook link, a supremely sharp hook. Now, with that eye-tied hair, as soon as that fish realises something is wrong, it will feel that hook. It's a biggish hook, size 6, straight away. As soon as that's gone in the mouth, it will try and blow it out. Now, you'll notice that as soon as you pick that up, the hook point drops down, because the bait is mounted on the eye like that. So that hook is going to drop down into the mouth, the floor of the mouth of the hook, of the fish I should say, and the bottom lip, aided by this lump of putty. And as soon as that does that, the fish is then going to try and expel whatever is in its mouth it wants to get rid of. The first thing that's going to go out is the boilie. And because that is a big, heavy, dense bottom bait, that is going to come out like an absolute ballistic missile and hammer that point like you wouldn't believe. And I think that huge amount of separation, the amount of travel that you get with that bait from off the bend of the hook when it's hanging straight to all the way back sort of an inch up the hook link, is one of the things that really upsets the apple cart with this rig. So overall length of the rig's probably about 6 or 7 inches. Sometimes I fish it longer, sometimes shorter, but that part of it, that whipping and the eye tied element, is something that I've been using in my fishing a lot more in the last few years. Usually, quite often, if I'm casting, I'll put a three bait stringer over the top, because obviously that hair can flip round and tangle. If I'm not using a stringer and I'm casting, I'll put 1 piece of dissolving foam over the top. But that is a presentation which I think causes the carp a huge amount of problems. And ultimately, it's just a knotless knot. Mad. Brilliant. Whew. Well, I heard that rumble of thunder in the distance. There's a couple of real big anvils building over there, a few miles away, getting closer. I was just having a look under some trees next door, and yeah, this rod went, which was incredible. As you saw, the fight was just insanity. It's not a particularly big fish, but my God, what a fight. $24. Mega. We have got storms all around us, and we're just in this little oasis of setting sunlight. It's just coming down the channel there, beautiful sunset, thunder rumbling all around. We've dodged a couple of proper downpours, and just in the middle of it, scrap with this incredible fish, 24 pounds. It's just like capped off, you know, a bit of a frustrating day, but it came good in the end. And what a battle. I mean, that was just insane, that fight. Flat rodding me, and yeah, you're a proper one. I like that, mate. And it's getting dark. The sun is just dropping below the trees. As I said, the storms are, one of these is going to hit us very soon. So I'm going to get this fella back, and then I've got to get the rods sorted for the final night. Well, we've got two rods sorted, absolutely as good as I can do them, pinpoint perfect. One where we caught the 24 pounder just out in front, and one just out by one of the islands where I spied a really nice little hole when I was floating about yesterday. It's a lot deeper than normal. It's 7 foot, just over 7 foot, which is very deep for this lake. Must be one of the deeper spots. Absolutely granite. So I baited them both with boilies, both with the bottom baits, just with that hammer hair that I was showing you earlier. We somehow avoided this monsoon that's just surrounded us. Like, the most amazing cataclysmic storms are going on, and thunder and lightning flashing in the distance, and somehow we haven't been rained on. So we managed to get everything done before it got dark and in the dry. It's the most atmospheric night you could ever ask for to be out carp fishing. Come on, one more carp, please. Long fish, it keeps pinging off him. Oh, did you see that tail? Proper gnarly. No. Now. I cannot put into words how much I love this. That's the bollocks. Yeah, now. It's one of the best fish in here. It's not a lever, but they call that I think it's either the big lever or the little lever. They're both quite big. The 30 pounder. Proper gnarly tail with the chopped off top lobe, stunted little fins. That, I can't even say how brilliant that is. It's a brief love affair with the reserve each spring. I come over here to escape the madness, and this is my last trip actually for this year, certainly till the autumn. 35 pound of the most incredible leathery serpent. Simple fishing, boilie fishing, getting on the fish, moving with the fish when we had to. It could not have come better. And for anybody out there who's watching it, who's tried to catch carp in front of cameras, knows the added challenges that brings. So when you get a result like we've had, it's true planetary alignment. Thank you very, very much. What a creature. Carlsberg carp, isn't it? Special carp, special lake, special morning.